Welcome to The Mix, a fusion dance podcast where we dive into the world of blending dances and all that comes with it. We're talking about everything from the highs of nailing that perfect combo to the lows, emotional, and mental challenges and more. And if you're new to the dance scene, don't worry, we've got you covered with practical tips to help get you started, feel comfortable, and most importantly, have fun. So come on in. We can't wait to dance with you.
Welcome to the Mix of Fusion Dance Podcast. I'm Kalen. I'm joined with Trang, as well as some special guests. David and Dani are here with us, and it's a special, special time. Can you guys tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, what you're about, and then we'll get into the conversation.
So my name is Dani. I'm from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I've been dancing pretty much my entire life. Grew up doing tap and jazz dance. And then in high school, I got a little bit more into like modern ballet. And then I was a dance major in college. So I studied modern and ballet in college as well. And then post graduation, I got into aerial arts a bit. And then boom, pandemic hit. Didn't know what was happening. And then eventually, long story short, I moved out to LA in January, got into the West Coast swing and fusion dance scene. And that's mostly what I've been focusing on lately.
Yep, I'm David Sacha, and I'm originally from Cincinnati. I've been dancing for about 6 years now. I live in Long Beach, California. I have my own design consultancy called Acton. And as far as the dance goes, I started out with a private teacher doing just dance in general, and then I started going to a lot of Latin stuff and the fusion events at Atomic as well. More lately, I've gravitated towards just fusion and contact improv. I've also done a little bit of pole, but not much.
I think the range of different dances is really cool, and I think like that's one of the great appeals of fusion. And I love how like we're all coming from different places, but we've all like somehow found that little funnel in to fusion. How has dance changed in terms of like how was dance for you when you first kind of came into it versus where it is now in your life?
For me,
Mhm.
I loved it initially, like just right off the bat. I always just found a lot of joy in it. And I remember thinking, like, why the hell wasn't I already doing this? Like, why didn't I know about this in high school? It felt like someone had been hiding this from me.
Mm,
But the more I just got into it, it just felt natural, and it my involvement in it has changed, especially over the last like year and a half. And I've kind of developed more of my own like style and love for it. And what initially started out as like really freaking out about technique and getting all of the things down and trying not to like embarrass myself, I
yeah.
kind of let that a little bit more, or I let that go and just, whatever comes to me.
Mhm.
Now that I've kind of built up my chops a lot more. So,
And I know that dancing has changed my life, and it's probably changed everyone's life here too, in many ways that we can't explain. So, and I've been struggling trying to uh, explain this to friends. So, how would you guys describe in what ways dancing has been healing for you, or has even changed your mental health or emotional health?
so I think the question I wanted to focus on right off the bat more specifically is why do I think dancing is healing? And I think like it's more accurate to say that it has the potential to be healing,
Yeah.
and it has the potential like to a really large degree to be healing, especially in my own experience. It has brought just so many good things to my life that I would take a long time to explain. But I've also seen that there's, other experiences that people have. Like I've heard from plenty of follows how upsetting getting like groped is, or like the dance boner thing, or like, anytime I hear about that stuff, it's like it hurts me because I'm like, I've had such a good experience, and hearing that other people are having what could be like a traumatic experience, depending on how regularly it happens. If it's once in a while, it's kind of like, there's always bad actors, but if it's regularly happening, then that's there's not much healing that can be happening for that person individually, at least. So that's why I believe the amount of healing that's possible directly related to how safe and loving the dance community itself is. If people don't feel safe enough to say no, report an incident, or reach out for like help when they need it, then they're not going to find any kind of healing in that community because there's no safe like space for them to find that. Because if you want to heal, you need to relax and ease into that space and find friends and people that you connect with.
Yeah, even like the environment that you're around or in while in the dance scene makes a big difference too, and affects those things that that you mentioned too, David. I think for like my dance experience, I've had like a very long dance journey just because dance has been part of my life for my entire life. The longer I've been part of the dance community, just as a whole, the more I have realized if I've been more part of a group or kind of secluded from a group, or whatever community I was in at that particular time. Because there were a lot of moments growing up, not even when I was super young, but even um, not quite so much in high school, actually a little bit in high school, but then even in college and beyond that, doing even professional work for a couple of years post graduation, I had those experiences where I felt very out of place. I didn't really feel welcomed. I felt like I didn't always know quite what it was, but something felt like I didn't fit in for whatever reason. But it's hard because when you love something so much, you want to be part of something so much. At what point is it going to take a toll on your mental health when you're around people that are making you feel this way when you're not supposed to be feeling, you know, kind of alone within a group or community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is part of the culture. There's this like a culture of perfectionism, and like I think that also is what maybe limits some people from joining the dance community because of the intimidation and or they feel like there's something that they can't do. 9 times out of 10, if I dance with someone and they've said I'm new at this, I like ignore it, and they're actually really good. It's just they haven't been shown that they're capable of doing it. Sometimes they are actually bad, but like they just need like a little instruction.
Yeah.
They've never done it before.
No, that confidence that I just had a conversation with somebody who they were like, "Oh, I've always wanted to dance. I've always wanted to dance, but I've never done it." And they were kind of talking about it from a performance stance. And I was like, you want to learn real quick?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, okay, that's fine. That's okay.
Right.
We could do it real quick. We could do it. We could do it right now." And then someone else was like, "Yes." So, they went, and then the other person was like, "Okay, well, I guess since they're doing it, I'll do it too." And it was like it might have been like 3 minutes, right? Learning a basic and then learning a little bit of structure, and they were right there. And from that point, I was like, yeah, like it's a confidence thing for a lot of people. It's a matter of knowing that it's okay to make mistakes on the way to learning the thing. Like the mistakes are part of the process. You don't have to look good the entire time. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to get it wrong. And when you feel like you're in a place where people are not going to reject you because you're bad at something, all of a sudden people blossom. At least that's been my experience.
Perfection is boring.
Yes.
And I think, again, like I know I've told you this, Dani, before, but you've made me feel so welcome at a dance scene, and that's made me want to come back. And I don't think people underestimate like dance, just compliments or even encouragement from people, because at the end of the day, we all kind of think we suck at some point, right?
Yes.
Especially when you're seeing better people on the dance floor. And even now when I dance, I've grown so much, but I sometimes question whether or not I should hold back any of my dance moves, like the bigger ones, because am I intimidating other people that are coming in to watch? So I do think that too. But then at other dance scenes, I'm like, oh no, I'm not good as them. So this whole dance journey is such a mental up and down type of thing. And I've had to try to check myself over and over again. And I think that's, when other dancers tell me like they just took a private class and they feel really, really crappy because they learned that they've been doing a lot of things wrong and they have a lot to go. But it's like we've all been there at that point. So yeah, it's quite like a interesting mental journey, because this is something like my non-dance friends would never see or never think that we would go through.
I believe dance has a lot of life lessons too. So not just like I'm teaching you how to dance. You're gonna come into class. This is more from like a solo dancer perspective a bit, but you're gonna come into class, you're gonna do this warm up, learn technique, learn this combo, and then leave. There's a lot more that goes into it than that from what I've learned growing up dancing, but just learning how to treat people, how to have good classroom etiquette, just kind of more like life lessons along those lines. And I think a lot of that has carried into me as a person, or at least I try to be a good person for other people too. And I try to be inclusive, welcoming. That's how I like to try to contribute to any and all dance communities, as opposed to just showing up to be there. Like I do want to be seen, but as a positive light and as someone that people can come to, and I like bringing people together, just because I've been in those situations in the past where I haven't felt always included, and I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So that's why I really actively go out of my way to be inclusive and to not just push anyone aside just because they may be different or they're maybe new, or whatever the reason is.
I think that there's like a lot of life lessons, a lot of things that you kind of learn in dance. I think one of my favorite is it's okay to shine. Like it's okay to express what you feel, and if that's something that, and I want to be mindful about how I say this, right? Because I'm not saying you should go into every scene and every place, and your goal is to, like, be the center of attention. But sometimes it is okay to take the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah, why not?
Sometimes it's okay to, like, it's okay to do that. And I think sometimes, at least I'll say for myself, what goes through my mind sometimes is like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to take it from somebody else, right? But I think in you expressing that, like if it's something that's really cool, that can make people feel inspired, not just intimidated. And I think a lot of times we're looking at it from the point of like, oh, I felt intimidated before, instead of also remembering the times we felt inspired by something amazing where we saw. And I think the way you carry yourself is the thing that can make the difference, because someone can look at that and say, wow, it was amazing. And you're like, do you want to learn how to do that? All of a sudden, boom, someone just got elevated because of that moment, right? Capturing that attention or whatever it was, and then using it for something positive. Now, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes I've had those moments where I'm like, yeah, I did that. Look at me, right? You know what I'm saying? I've had those moments too. That has happened.
You've earned it, right?
You know what I mean?
Why do we need to be afraid of self-expression? Like, if I'm getting the attention, it doesn't mean I'm taking it away from anybody else. It's just that's what's happening. And I mean, more so than like when it's being given towards somebody else. There's not a finite supply of it.
Yeah, everyone has their little moments to shine and show off a little bit.
That was actually what really changed my dance style. Was a few months ago, I started realizing a lot of my approach was based around, partner dancing, and I'm the lead. And a phrase I've heard is that, like, the lead is meant to make the follow look good, which is great. But I was also like, well, why can't I look good also? So then I started doing more movements that I felt good to me. And whether they look good or not, I don't know. But it was just like doing more other than just being upright. And, I still do that a lot, but adding other stuff in has kind of helped a lot.
Yeah, David, I've actually noticed that even about your dancing, because we've danced together before, and there's a lot of dancers, I guess both in West Coast and Fusion, that I've noticed that like they'll just do the basics, not really add their own style or personality flair. Yeah, but no, I really like that you do have your own style that you seem to have created, and I could tell. I do notice that. So it's cool that you do that.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it has been noticed.
Good.
Yes, it is a workout dancing with you.
And that's something that I've had to accept, because I for a while I was like, did I not do this? Like it seems like some follows, like they're like physically exhausted after dancing with me. Yeah. I'm like, maybe I should tone it down a little bit. But I think what I do now is the people who I know enjoy it, like you, Trang, or Dani. If I do that, I try not to do it multiple times, just to not like totally wear you out, and myself also.
But we want the workout.
Can you imagine if we were like video game characters with like a note on our shirt being like, okay, if you dance with us, cardio level 10 out of 10.
Style. That would actually,
like the stats.
That would actually help a lot, honestly.
That would go hard.
I wouldn't have to like guess.
That's a great idea.
That would be. We should have like an event like that where it just shows like the cardio level, the style, the what's it called? Agility, speed, power.
Yeah.
I really like this. Like, I like this a lot.
Yeah. You guys, someone's got to make this happen.
And then there's there's always like that a character's like special move that they do, finishing move.
Yeah.
Or they do it like at least once throughout the dance, if not more.
It's so funny. For you guys, how do you think when you dance, whether it's alone or with a partner, that obviously it's a workout, so that's good with endorphins and stuff, but how do you think it expresses emotions that you can't speak or verbalize or
Mm,
in that way?
For me, I feel like I
yeah.
connect. What helps me really connect to my dance is the music,
Mm,
which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. If I don't know the song I'm dancing to, I tend to not get into it as much, and maybe that'll be a song I focus more on, like technique or something besides the emotional aspect of it. But if I'm whether I'm dancing with someone or by myself, if there's a song that's playing that has lyrics that I resonate with, or just like the feeling behind the music, that's I don't know, something just like gets pulled out of me that way.
mm,
Something opens my emotional valve. I don't know. I kind of like black out in a sense and just kind of get lost.
So for me, with expressing emotions and dance, something that it's helped me express is sensuality, and because that's something I've had a weird relationship with in general, and there's a lot of taboo around it, but finding like healthy ways to express that and that aren't harmful to me or other people is I've found a lot of that through dance, and it doesn't happen all the time, and it's not why I go to dance, but it's not like I don't enjoy it. And sensual doesn't necessarily have to be like sexual either. It can be, but like it doesn't have to be. And I think that kind of expression through dance and the movements has kind of helped me express those sides of myself in a way that I hadn't before.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who said this is for salsa, but and bachata, but she's like, I feel like I can express myself in a very sensual way on the dance floor but it's the one place I can do it safely
Mm,
and
I
not,
like
I'm gonna
that.
say
Yeah.
not get hit on, but because there's always a chance of being hit on, but versus if you do it at a club or on the streets, people will take it the wrong way. Whereas on the floor, when the song's over, you just say bye and move on to another dance partner. But for those 3 to 4 minutes, you can ooze that energy out.
Yeah.
mhm,
Well, I feel like what helps with that is the fact, especially in the fusion community where boundaries are set up very clearly, you can do that and people will understand that that doesn't mean you're asking for anything else. You're just
yeah.
expressing that
Mm-hmm.
the way you want to, versus a nightclub where people make assumptions or then act the way that they do at nightclubs.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people in the fusion community give me these vibes, but for me, I also like I'm very into physical touch, whether it be platonically or with like a romantic interest. But I think dance kind of does feeds me that um love language in a sense too. Just being able to
Same.
physically connect with someone, but then also when you do physically connect with someone, I feel like I could plot some like emotional connection to. Again, not necessarily like in a romantic way, but just I feel like as an example too, like if I'm hanging out with like my dance friends all the time, I'm going to be more connected to them on the dance floor as opposed to just one person that I just randomly danced with, have never really had much conversation with. I mean, we still might have a good dance because I have had those dances where I've just met someone and we had a really good dance. But I feel like the more you can connect with someone on a little deeper level emotionally, or just have that closeness with someone, it definitely helps with dancing as well.
I was just saying the physical closeness is actually a really good way to like create healing, and like physical touch can be really healing, even with just like if you haven't done much of it and you join the dance community and you find people that you feel safe doing that with, that could be like sometimes like the first time you find that kind of safety with
Yeah.
other people. So I love that too. And especially I definitely have or physical touch is also my love language. So that's also what drew me to dance. Um, probably subconsciously, but it provides that like a lot, and it's helps. Yeah.
I think humans do need physical touch, and we probably don't realize we're lacking it, and just that human
Oh yeah,
connection in
definitely.
general.
Like hugs, especially like good hugs, like a longer hug. Like
Mm.
there's what is I think it's like oxytocin
Oxytocin.
and yeah, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. Like you get
Yeah.
those like feel good bonding, brain little
Yeah.
brain boosts. No, I mean I definitely do like being able to get to that place, because I think you kind of referenced it, Danny, that place of like where you're not thinking, you're kind of like fully in it, like that sort of blackout or that like flow, like getting to that place
Closely.
of like just complete and total immersion.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a lot for me. There's a particular way, like I have to, kind of go through a certain ritual to get to that point. But once I'm there, I feel like the way that I dance, it feels like everything just works. Like it feels like there's no effort. It's not, there's no struggle, there's no resistance. It's just whatever comes works.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about fusion too, is kind of allowing yourself to let go of structure, but at the same time using the knowledge you have from other dance styles, and putting them into fusion. Because with my like modern ballet contemporary background, I do that. So I move in a technical way that I don't really have to think about necessarily. Kind of like what you were saying, David. It's just kind of autopilot. Like, once you learn, Um, so it feels really nice to be able to use that technique and background, but then also let it go at the same time and then pull it back in. And it's just like, just feels like a rush of movement. And I think it is a little bit more difficult to find that with someone that has a completely different style than you. But at the same time, I think it makes the dance more interesting because you're like, oh, how can I use my style, make it mesh with this other person's style that's possibly completely different than mine. But I feel like that also brings out some inspiration and creativity in my ideas and gives me chances to try things I may never have thought of before, which is exciting.
Has there been a time where dance pulled you through a really tough period or helped you get through just a really extremely tough time?
My younger brother was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and during that time, he dropped a lot of weight. I was here in California. This was a couple years ago, but I was here in California. He's in Pennsylvania. My family's in Pennsylvania, and the person that I saw before I left and the person I saw when I got back were totally different. I mean, he had to like use a cane to get around, and like he lost so much weight. It was like it was super hard, and there were a lot of things that went on in that time period. He's doing a lot better now, and I mean, you wouldn't know unless you like, you talk to him, that there was that anything like that had happened. But during that time, I like kind of took a step back from everything, with the exception of very close relationships, my partner and like my immediate family. But it was like a handful of people knew where I was or like what I was doing. And I remember somebody saying like, "Yo, you need to go out and dance. Like you need to go do something. Like you need to not just be here in the hospital or like at home. Like you need a third place." And what was amazing about that is like at that time I wasn't super close to like my dance community. It was a lot. It was fusion, but it was like kind of blues and fusion. It was kind of like the lane. But what was amazing to me is how many people were following and were like, they're like, hey, like we heard from this person that this happened, and if you need anything, let us know. And just like checking it, like the kindness from people when I walked in the room made such it was like people. I'm like, I don't even know if we've talked. Like, I don't even know if we had a conversation. But the fact that they were like, "Hey, how are you doing?" and then there was follow up. It was that made a difference for me, and that I think is what really shifted how I related to dance. I think I like had a deeper appreciation for dance, the dance community, what it provides for people in terms of that support. Because it's not just about showing up and dancing. It's not just about going there and sweating. Although those are great things. But it's like the people showing up for people part,
Mhm.
and that for me is what that made a difference.
I love that because yeah, the people are a big part for me as well. So like about a year and a half ago now, I went through a pretty tough breakup, and um, like for the record, like I have all the respect for her, and honestly, she made the right decision. But after that happened, I was already in the dance community, but it was when I started really just getting invested, and I was like, I need like a community, I need friends, and since doing that, I'm incredibly grateful for all of like the friends like you guys that I've made, and Jordan and Natalie and plenty of other people who are like really important parts of my life that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't like really gone out and sought those relationships and developed them over time. And it really pulled me out of a difficult place because there was other shit going on that had nothing to do with the breakup that was really difficult to get through. And having support from friends who care about you and are like can help you through this kind of stuff, it's really powerful. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, community. I feel like is the key word that we've all related to here. For me, like when I was going through a really rough time in my life, I was teaching dance at the time, and my students and their families and the studio I was at was like kind of felt like a big part of my rockin' family. Um, yeah, so in 2022, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a type of blood cancer, and which was like the start of the hardest 2.5 years of my life.
Wow.
Um, and just at that, I went through chemotherapy treatment, radiation, and all on top of that, I was choreographing competition dances, performance dances. I was teaching. I tried my best to be like not my normal self necessarily, but I tried my best to stay in some sort of routine or some sort of normality. I try to have some type of normality while I was going through all this, just to kind of feel like a human, I guess. And yeah, not having that dance studio I was really part of would have been a lot harder because I don't know, I felt every time I was there, just like I taught a wide range of kids. So it's just, kids, their energy just maybe not for everyone, but like for me, it like really lifted me up, and they were always so excited to see me, like, oh, Miss Dani, we love you, and like we miss you. And they also don't really know a lot of them don't really know what's really deeply going on in my life, like beyond that. Like they knew something was happening or I was going through something, but yeah, I think for me, that's always something I looked forward to, is seeing my students and being able to teach them. And at one point, one of the instructors made a book that I still have, just an empty journal, and they all like wrote something. I even read it like a month or two ago and just read it back, and I was just crying. I'm like, oh my God, like I it's nice to look back and like kind of take a moment to appreciate that, and like notice how much you were part of a community. But it was like really, that was my rock, that really grounded me, and having something had it was great to have that to look forward to be with my students. And but I am cancer free now, so I'm all good, y'all.
Okay.
So
Hell
you guys
yeah.
were like waiting, like, wait, hold on. And then after that, just to add on to like my tragic story,
Yeah.
I also tore my ACL last year.
Oh,
So that's what kind of added on to this 2.5 year like self-healing journey. It's been a wild ride for me. At that time, where like these past couple years, I haven't really been able to dance the way I wanted to. And once I got to get back into dancing again, that's, I think, what re-sparked my joy and love and passion for dance, which I probably would have gotten in a different way. So in a way, I'm like, taking, you can't really change what happened in your life, but you could take a look and be like, okay, how has this positively impacted my life, even if it is a shitty situation?
Yeah, I always think about when people have injuries, or like, let's say like super permanent injuries where the doctor's like, you're never going to be able to walk again or dance ever again, like how people would deal with that grief. Do you guys ever feel like, because dance has consumed our lives, let's just be honest here, are you ever afraid that it might consume you and take over your identity?
I kind of had a couple of moments because I went right after graduating. I started coaching, and I was coaching at a high school. So like during that time, I was kind of like in this really weird in between, and I enjoy coaching so much, but it wasn't a good environment, and I was dancing a lot more. Like I was probably going 4 or 5 times a week, and I was dancing. It was mostly salsa. Like I was mostly dancing Latin, and I really felt like God was like, dude, you need to chill out. And I had like several people hit me with that, like, yo, like you need to actually deal with the thing. And during that time, I had to take a lot of time away from dance. And I remember going to a friend of mine. He was like, "Oh, this always happens. Like, like somebody's really good, and then they just like they leave and they never come back." And I was like, honestly, I don't know if I'll come back, but if I don't, I'll be okay because this isn't where my identity is. But it took that time away from it, and in dealing with the situation, to have kind of that reset where I'm like, oh, dance is something that I do, but it's not who I am. It's a place where I express parts of who I am and express who I am, but like this is not like where my identity is. And like my faith, that's where my identity is. That's like for me, that's my that's my center. And I'm like, okay, everything else is after, like everything else is after that. So if I lose my ability to dance, it will be hard, but like it wouldn't be impossible. And then even with my dad, he was in he was a great athlete, and was drafted to play pro football. And on his way back from celebrating was in an accident that technically took his life. He wasn't supposed to have kids, wasn't supposed to walk again. I'm one of four, and he's walking and still causing trouble, and all that good stuff, and just like super super, like he does way too much. But like that was something I think, kind of growing up with that in mind, has shaped how I interact and how I engage with things that I do, because he would always talk about how like your identity isn't in the things that you do, right? These are just expressions for who you are, but your
Mhm.
character your character will translate regardless of what it is.
Yeah, because I think about like, who are we without dance, right?
We're people. Like I mean, we're not dancing right now. We're interacting on Zoom and talking, and then having this great conversation about all this stuff, which is evidence of the fact that we're not just dancers.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little dirty with some psychology stuff,
Yeah.
because I was going to explain how, um, like why some of this is so healing, and like you mentioned, if you get so consumed with dance that it just becomes your whole life. There's a defense mechanism called sublimation, and what that is it's basically where you're taking what would be considered like an unhealthy or taboo emotion, and then taking that energy and putting it into something healthy and productive. That it can include dance, or like working out, or like screaming into the void, or like or writing poetry. That's another way. So for like depression, writing is a great way to sublimate your emotions and turn them into something positive. Anger and aggression, it's like a rec room, or even dance, because they're dancing really fast and like there's a lot of energy. You're sublimating those emotions through, and there is a negative side to it where if you're doing that so much, but you're not also doing the cognitive part of that healing process, you're basically just completely relying on this, and then you're going out dancing like 5 6 times a week or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how you're getting your fix, or like that's how you release those emotions, because that's the only way you know how. So it's a good thing, but it also can be, like most things, abused if you don't like careful with it.
Yeah, like you're almost like you're training yourself to only process those emotions through that thing. And if you take that thing away, you don't have any other way of processing that thing. You
Mm.
can actually like walk through it, and it just stays there. Yeah.
What I'm getting is like the way you express yourself, putting all your eggs in that one basket. So would it be actually, is it healthier then to have a diverse ways of expressing emotions, instead of all just in
Always.
sports, all in dance?
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so too. Especially because, well, like with my experience tearing my ACL, I couldn't dance, and so I was like, well, now what? But so at that time I started to find some other things, hobbies, passions I was kind of interested in. I started getting into piano a little bit more. I've always told myself, well, I'd be a really good calligrapher, so I got into calligraphy. So it was a nice time to start discovering other things, which is like are different forms of creative expression. So depending on the individual, you can find different ways to, I guess, yeah, express yourself. At the end of the day, yeah, you're still expressing yourself in some sort of form.
So another example that I realize, and this relates to what we talked about earlier, where I dance and it's can be a workout for the follows. I think I was realizing that there's like a flight response in that, of just the excessive, and I'm like, oh, I think I might be letting anger out. Like,
Hmm.
Or
and
especially
Headbanging.
yeah, especially like, do you guys find that whatever you guys have been going through the week, emotionally or mentally, you carry it onto the dance floor for that week? Or do you feel like once you walk into the dance studio, you go, it's all out, like I don't have to worry about what I've been going through?
Depends on how bad it is.
Yeah. I think a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like I feel like at first it's like, yeah, I'm definitely pushing through some sort of feelings right here for myself. But then once I'm there for a while, then I'm around my friends and people, then
Mhm.
I could start to lighten up a little bit and enjoy myself, even if I've had like the crappiest day or week or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I always had a coach who he would make it a point. He's like, I don't care what you're going. I could do it in his voice, but I don't want to do it in case he listens to this. And he's like, oh, you're making fun of me. I don't need that. I don't need that smoke when I head back home. But he would always say, you know, like whatever you're going through, whatever's stressing you out, leave the backpack at the door. Here, this is a different space. Pick it up when you get out, but like here, like leave it at the door. And
Hmm.
even in dance, I feel like there. Granted, you know, there are a couple times where you just like the bag is just it's just there. It's or the monkey is on your back and it's not letting go, right? But for the most part, I don't bring that into the dance. Like when I walk in the door, I'm like, oh, it's a different place. And when I feel like when I'm there, and especially when I get to that really deep immersive flow, that just like that, you know, the prefrontal cortex is quiet and I'm just in it, right? Like I'm just not thinking, I'm not processing life and all those things. I'm just in that moment. I feel like when I walk away from it, I'm actually a lot better at problem solving. I feel like there's like a 3 or 4 day span where I feel like I can handle things better and I can like respond a little bit better. I'm like, oh, the solution is actually this. Or maybe it's like, oh, you know, I think I put too much ego into that. I'm the problem. It's me. I need to change. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it coming away from the situation and leaving it at the door, having this time to get the energy out or to get good energy in, or just, you
Hmm.
know, to be in that moment and then coming out of it. I feel like, yeah, it lends itself for me to like better um better problem solving. So.
Hmm. Someone just actually shared a study with me. I didn't look into it into a whole lot of depth, but it was basically comparing how dance, along with other types of activities,
Mhm.
can help with, I wouldn't say necessarily curing depression, but helping with depression or
Yeah.
depression like symptoms. And I have the list actually right here of a couple of things. They use dance, walking or jogging, cognitive behavioral therapy, yoga, exercise. The list goes on with a few more things. But out of the whole list, dance was at the very top, and with even a fewer amount of studies done on dance because they didn't need quite as many um, numbers essentially to get to the point where like they saw um, where dance was the top way to help with those symptoms.
When you guys have moved to different places, or like Danny, like you've moved from different dance communities and stuff like that, was there a huge grieving process, or were you kind of so used to it that, especially when you have to change dance communities, saying goodbye to dance friends and moving to a new state? Like, how do you deal with that?
So, but I think when I did join the West Coast swing community specifically first, when I was got out here to SoCal, um, I think kind of I really felt like I had to put myself out there to like try to make friends and have people know who I was. Because I remember actually my very first social event I went to, um, and this is not to make you guys feel bad for me because I laugh thinking back about this story, but I went to one of the dance events. I won't say which one, but I remember going. I didn't really know anyone there. I went by myself. I think I saw a couple familiar faces from a class that I took, but I basically didn't make any friends that night. So I went, I danced, left. I remember I sat in my car and I just started crying,
Oh,
which it's okay because
it
later
is.
on, like I said, I just kind of look back and laugh at that now. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, I felt like I just didn't make any friends. I felt like really not out of place, but it just felt like there were so many people that were close with each other. And maybe it was just that community specifically. But the more I went and the more I put myself out there, I I stopped feeling like that. So I think you do have to kind of make an effort to put yourself out there to not like force yourself into a community, but you do have to make effort, to like socialize and to meet people. Some communities it's a little easier to do that in. Like when I got into fusion, I felt like it was a little easier to just kind of openly talk to people with, and I never got any type of like clicky vibes in the fusion scene.
Yeah, Kayla and I have talked about this, and we're gonna have to probably do an episode about it. But where factors that make places more clicky. And I think with fusion, we were talking about how people come to fusion, but they're coming from different dance scenes. And so it's like a bunch of single people coming, not single people, but like individuals coming here versus when
Yeah.
you're at swing, when you're at Latin, stuff like that. There might be people that have danced together in classes all the time, getting ready to compete, or they just have been there longer. And so these are little factors that add to the petri dish to make a place more clicky. And for people that rock up solo like we do, because I'm like you, Danny, I just rock up and I'm like, I'm gonna check this place out. I hope I like it. If not, I'm just gonna bounce. Um, and there are places where I definitely feel it. You definitely feel it. But I think that's the thing about fusion. There's not the way it's set up. It's kind of, at least here in LA, it's not really as clicky because it's a bunch of individuals coming. You saying that though about like not feeling great, especially going alone. I know other people have felt that. I have felt that myself too. And then it makes you be like, do I want to do this anymore? Do I come back? And then you say, I'm giving it a try one more time. And maybe, and this is where anyone listening, I'm like, you might be that one person that makes someone feel welcome and want to come back again and try again. So don't ever underestimate that about you. What's something you guys have learned about yourself through dance? Kind of loaded question.
I learned that I was extroverted because part of my trauma is I had a lot of social anxiety, and I had thought I was introverted, but I realized it was just social anxiety. And as I did more dancing and healed a lot of that, I became more extroverted, and that was like, oh, I actually really like that. And I have moments where I definitely want to be on my own still, but I enjoy being around people or dancing and showing off a little bit or a lot.
Yeah, I'm actually I can relate to that, David, because although I may not come off this way, I'm a very shy person. But not when it comes to dancing. When it comes to talking and like opening up,
Yeah.
I tend to be shyer. So yeah, dance for me is a way I can like communicate with someone without having to talk.
For me, I think a thing that I learned, 'cause I feel like I learned a lot about myself through dancing, but that I really, really enjoy having like these moments where we can just be like silly and goofy and creative and dramatic and all of that. And that like I really like prior to dancing, I think I was a lot more serious and a lot more, I don't know, stoic isn't the right word for it, but it was just very like very
Reserved.
to the point. And yeah, no, yeah, I mean reserved to a degree, but just very direct, very to the point. And I feel like dance made me more comfortable, or allowed me, I should say, to be more comfortable with expressing other shades of myself, of like letting those things come up and come out.
Yeah.
Where I think in the past I was like, I'm either on or I'm off, and that's it. Yeah, so
I think I'm along the same thread as you, Kaylin, where it's okay to be playful in life. You don't always have to be serious and responsible. You can let go and let someone else take the reign, especially as a follower. And I grew up as a tomboy, so it was like it's okay to be feminine. It's okay to be that, bring that sexy, flirty energy on the dance floor
Yeah.
if you want to. And it felt weird, but it's like it's okay. You can do that. So yeah. But thank you so much, Dani, David, and Caitlin for being here today. If
Yeah.
you guys enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please share it with a friend and give us a follow and 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can check us out on social media at Fusion Dance Podcast. If you have any topics or suggestions for us, please shoot us an email at fusiondancepodcast@gmail.com. I'm including Dani and David's contact info as well down below if you want to get in touch with them. And thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll see you next time.